here we are, starting our voyage around Cape Cod on the SSV Corwith Kramer, and then down to the Sargasso Sea and the West Indies. But this was before that. We hadn't sailed around Cape Cod yet. This was only in the beginning. This is off the coast of Block Island and Rhode Island Sound, east of Montauk, New York. And look at those wind turbines. You know how the camera always shrinks down the size of things. This is a line chase, sort of a relay race here, and one of the scientists give a card to one of the student sailors, and the card had the name of a line on it, a halyard or a sheet or a clewin, you get the idea, for a specific sail, and so the student has to walk briskly to find that line, and then one of the mates, or the paid sailors, would check if they were right, and not simply grabbing the first line they saw, so they had to walk back to their watch, and the next student would try to find the line on the next card, and the out-haul, in-haul, down-haul, or what have you. And always walking on the double. It's a competition, you see, between the three watches, but no running. You run on the deck, you get disqualified from the line chase. But boy, we had lines, more than I could count, forward, aft, port, and starboard, but you had to learn them all to sail the SSV Corwith Kramer, over 130 feet long from the bowsprit to the lazarette. Built in Spain, the first SSV ship in the whole world. Called it a brigantine. And they had travelers for the staysail sheets and the squaresails furl on the mast instead of the yards, but, well, it wasn't a brigantine and nobody knew what it was, so we called it a brigantine all the same. Here all the watches are cheering and hollering, and they can't help their friends, you see. They can't tell them where the line is they have to find. They can only say hot or cold. That way every one of the sailors learns every one of the lines, because it's no good to be striking sails out in a gale. You have sailors hauling away on the fish throat halyard because they don't know their lines. So we learn them here in the line chase. And maybe we would have learned them a little quicker with a dog biting at our heels, but then again, I'll never know. Here we're getting ready to jibe. You have to pay attention to the wind and get the wind from one side of the ship to the other, crossing over the stern, but it's hard to move the wind, and it's a lot easier to move the ship around the wind. So all there is to do is to trim the sails and 2 turns left on the helm. Now it's all the way main sheet, and see how they haul 2, 6, and heave, and then all in unison takes one big jerk, and there's the captain now helping bring in the sheet. Captain Sean Burcaw, practically born to the sea and trained in its ways by King Neptune himself. And that's well, so it's up behind and ready to sheet out before making fast. And now we're in the Gulf Stream. You've never in your life seen water so blue, and of course, if you're watching this now, you still haven't because it's in black and white, but you'll just have to use your imagination. In go the bottles, each with a message inside and maybe a treasure map. Here you can see all the pitching and rolling of the high seas. When we were on land, before we ever got on the boat, we trained our balance by walking on a piece of webbing strung between 2 trees. Now, we didn't do anything stupid, you see, no fancy tricks like standing on our heads on the top of a telephone pole or anything like that, because after all, when you're going around Cape Cod or sailing in the Sargasso Sea, when you're ever going to have to stand on your head? Never. That's when we trained our balance by walking on a slack line, training for days like these, where the deck is rolling about, so you can't hardly get your balance. But here I am now, standing on the end of the bowsprit, just for the fun of it, not seasick anymore, and just having a jolly time during this gale. And I guess I had made it look like so much fun. Next, my friends and shipmates come to try it for themselves, and they had just as much a ball as I did, just being tossed up and down by the motion of the deep blue during a gale. Now we're back on the bowsprit, furling the jib, but it looks like there's something in the water just below the headrig. What could it be? A sea monster of some kind? No, a porpoise, just swimming along. Dolphins love to swim and play in the boat's wake just forward of the bow. They could swim faster than the ship with ease, which isn't hard to do because the Corwith Kramer is not a fast ship. Getting ready to deploy a scientific instrument now. This is called a shipek. That's S-H-I-P-E-K. It's a big metal claw that we send down to the bottom of the sea floor, and it grabs some sediments from the bottom. We send it down in this big high-tension wire called a hydrocast. There's the wire all the way out now. 500 meters now and going down. Look at that fog. Thick as a wall, I tell you, but fog or no fog, science never sleeps, so we did wire deployments every day for various instruments. By the end of the trip, we'd done so many wire deployments that many of the students wanted to deploy themselves over the side for science, but this is not approved, seeing as then you have a man overboard. Here's a jar of parasites we found living on some seaweed in the Sargasso Sea. Now, our chief scientist was mildly interested in the parasites, but mostly he studied the weeds themselves. It's a wonder not more of this footage is of sargassum weeds. But, like I said, science never sleeps. It's a dark as the dickens, but there's seawater samples to bottle up, and they will process those for chlorophyll A or pH or phosphate. You can thank your lucky stars we didn't process nitrate. Don't ask to borrow a toothbrush from this fella, you don't know where it's been. But all this, and you'll think we didn't have any fun on the ship. This is boat charades, and what was that? That's easy. Check in the deck generator now. Meet up, decide what's next. That way it's in unison now. What is it now? What does the crowd say? Looks like furling the jib. No, the jib topsail then. No, you have to sit down to do this. Sweating the coarse brails, bracing sharp for a port tack. We're having class now. Don't forget this is counted for academic credit for most of the sailors, so we mustered on the quarterdeck every day save for Sundays to have ship's meeting and then class. But don't worry, there isn't going to be an exam at the end. The test is the sailing itself, and King Neptune is a more merciless grader than any university professor. No, we had plenty of fun aboard ship. Now we're docked in Stock Island, Florida, celebrating a successful voyage around Cape Cod. Over 3,500 nautical miles, over 40 days and 40 nights, no port stops along the way. We sailed through the Gulf of Maine, down to George's Bank, and then through the Sargasso Sea, and next the Bermuda Triangle, where we spent Halloween. It was a blue moon on Halloween on a dark and stormy night, smack dab in the middle of the Bermuda Triangle, but we survived for 40 days and 40 nights, never set foot on land. That ship was our home, so you got used to it whether you liked it or not. You learned to keep your elbows off the dinner table because the tables were gimbaled and swung as the boat rocked, and you learned to move with alacrity and haul lines with alacrity, so no moping about when the ship needs tending to. But we didn't just learn to sail, we went out to sea, and we learned to love the sea and respect the sea. Corey Kramer himself would have been proud to see how much we learned aboard that ship, tossed and turned in the deep blue. 100 nautical miles away from land or more, using the sun and the stars to guide us, using celestial fixes and running fixes all in the day's work. At the end of the day, even if you're only just waking up for watch here, we are just sailing along with the sun going down in the trade winds. Oh, it's absolutely lovely. That's going around Cape Cod as I saw it. Thank you.